obviously I'm going for monkeyfish.
Do I have a choice?
No. I stole it.
Okay. Old pendulous breast herself.
Chase you through a cave. I know you do outside.
And we're going to talk about how wrong you are after this.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Monsters Lounge. I'm Jeni.
And I'm Tressa.
That's good. That's great. I like your glasses tonight, Tressa.
They're readers because I can't see with my contacts.
No, that's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That's
perfect.
perfect.
What time is it according to the birds in your room?
I think it's around 9 o'clock. It's about
that's
time that they go to bed. Yeah. It's bedtime for them, so they sing a nightly song that Tressa loves.
So good.
That's so good. Tressa, what's going on in your world right now?
Nothing for anyone to know but me. Maybe you. That's it. Nothing.
No TikToks or anything that you wanted to discuss?
Listen, there was like, they did a CAT scan of the boogosphere, and I saw a TikTok, and the lady was like, "Does it look like anything familiar?" It looks just like she's like, "It looks just like Stonehenge." I'm like, "Well, because there's dots in a circle, that doesn't mean it looks like Stonehenge. It's just a circle. What are you talking about?"
Can I tell you that at first I did not distinguish that as two separate words? I really thought you said boogosphere, like it was like a layer of the atmosphere that I had previously been unaware of.
You don't remember mocking my TikTok corner last week?
I did remember it after that.
Okay.
The sphere. Yeah, the sphere.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm-hmm. The metal. Not much. I've been looking at, I received a video earlier that was about discovering some megalodon teeth outside of the shores of North Carolina.
I saw a TikTok about that.
North Carolina. Anyway, so which leads me to my next rabbit hole that I'll be going down on, and that will be the search for megalodon teeth around the coast of Florida, because I'm going to try to take a trip down there, perhaps to attend SharkCon, perhaps.
That's exciting.
I know, it's very exciting. So I'm going to try to dive and look for megalodon teeth. And then no one will ever see me again because I will just be basking in the glow of my thousands of megalodon teeth.
That's, you know what, good for you.
Thank you.
Also, was there a time when the beaches were just filthy with megalodon teeth? I feel like everyone was bringing home megalodon teeth at some point.
I think there was a point, yeah, but I think that was in Australia. According to our fellow Cryptid Womens Society ladies, you could just trip over them down there. So
that's neat.
Yeah, none of that has anything to do much with our guest tonight, though. Our guest is returning.
Yay!
I know. I'm so excited. He's one of our favorite people to talk to because he knows a lot of things and speaks very well, and just an all-around nice guy. So Mike Ricksecker is here. And he is a researcher and an author. He also is a filmmaker, and he's got about 30 years of experience doing research and writing about ancient civilizations and lost knowledge and the unexplained. He has written several books, a couple of them I've read that are fantastic. Travels Through Time, A Walk in the Shadows, and Alaska's Mysterious Triangle, I think are the bestsellers and award winners. He's also been on Ancient Aliens, The Unexplained, and The Alaska Triangle, and is producer-director of The Shadow Dimension. So help me please welcome Mike.
Hello, Jeni and Tressa. Always a pleasure.
Yes, welcome back.
Thanks so much.
We have so many questions about your most recent book, which is Portal to the Stars, sorry, that I think we're just going to kind of try to jump right into it.
Sure.
All right. So this book has a lot to do with Stargates. And I am not very well versed on the Stargates, so I kind of understood that they were portals through, time and distance and other dimensions, but you mentioned that they are also about different levels of consciousness?
It can be.
Ah.
It really depends on what the Stargate was used for. So basically, a Stargate is an intelligent being's an intelligent being harnessing the capabilities of a naturally occurring portal and kind of bending it to its will. So, this could be a human taking the portal and having it operate to the point where maybe it's going across the cosmos or some other place on Earth. Could even be like an extraterrestrial or an interdimensional being. One of the uses is also using the Stargate to enter into altered states of consciousness. So rather than going to some other place in the cosmos or what have you, you could go into this meditative state and enter into some other state of consciousness. Whether that's going into another dimension at the same time is also possible. So yeah, there are a lot of uses for these things.
Oh,
I
wow.
really like that Jenny's first question is like, blah, 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 alternate dimensions. Tell us about meditation.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the only thing that I was like, oh, that's surprising.
That's
Well,
surprising.
one of the things when we look at Stargates in ancient Egypt, and they're actually all over and they're labeled specifically as Stargate. Then the hieroglyphs are right there, and they spell out Stargate. So it's like, here it is. This is the Stargate. And it's funny because traditional archaeology, their eyes just kind of glaze over. We're just going to ignore all that. But when we go on our Stargates of Ancient Egypt tour, we pointed out there it is, and there it is. The one year we were like on a scavenger hunt trying to find all the Stargates. It was pretty cool. It was fun.
Nice.
But in the Temple of Seti at Abydos, you go into this one chamber. It's the Hall of Ptah Soker, and which are two of their gods. And there are two Stargate chambers in the back. But on the walls of this entrance hall, it talks about ingesting these white cakes before going into the Stargate chambers. And that's kind of interesting because with any temple in Egypt, no matter what the whole construction of the temple is, whether it's like sandstone or limestone or whatever, when you enter into the temple, you always cross a granite threshold. And that could just be like a granite block that's on the ground that you walk over, or the entire entrance gate could be made of granite. And Aswan rose granite is made of about 55 to 60% quartz. And the purpose of this was that as you entered into the temple, it would clear your energy. So you'd go in with renewed and fresh energies. Well, if you're going to use the Stargate, though, okay, you have fresh energies, but we're going to give you something. We're going to give you this white cake that we believe had monatomic white gold embedded in it. And you ingest the cake, you go into the Stargate chamber, and you go somewhere. And that's the big question. Where did you go? Did you go to another place in the cosmos, somewhere else on Earth, another dimension, altered state of consciousness? We don't know precisely, but we have a lot of different ideas as to what may have happened.
Okay, can you please explain the white gold that you just said in the cakes, because I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Monatomic white gold is you're getting down into the atomic elements of the gold. So this actually appears as a white powder, and it was kind of like legend for a long period of time that this material actually existed. And the way that was read in the hieroglyphs was kind of misread. They called it mufkuts. And so when you read some different literature from years past, you'll see it referred to as the mufkuts. Basically, it's what MFKTZ, something like that. No vowels, because ancient Egyptians never used vowels. But David Hudson, back in the 1980s, kind of stumbled across this same thing in modern times. And this was a guy who had bought a ranch in Arizona that he was looking to farm. He was having a terrible time farming it. So he decided that he was going to, like others in the area, try to mine it for gold. And so as he was doing so, using the chemical process to kind of leach the gold out of the soil, he had this other material that was left over. And so what the heck is this? And he got like the University of Iowa involved, and some others like Hal Puthoff, who's known for his work at the Stanford Research Institute, and a lot of the like remote viewing. Interesting that he got involved. But they determined that this material, this white gold powder, defied really the laws of space-time. So they would do things like, okay, just to simply weigh it, right? You put it on a scale, you'll put it into like a pan, just for example, maybe the pan weighs 5 ounces. So you'd expect, you put the powder in the pan, it's supposed to weigh more, right? Like maybe it'll be 8 ounces, 10 ounces, something like. No, it would weigh less. Like it would be 3 ounces instead. So it had like these anti-gravity sort of properties. And then they would do things like they would heat it up. And once it reached a certain temperature, it would turn invisible. Now, we have other materials that turn invisible when you heat it up. But with this, some of the different tests that they would try is, okay, it's turned invisible, so it should still be in the pan. So let's go ahead. We'll put a ladle in there and kind of stir it around, and then we'll cool it back down. And therefore, the powder in the pan should have like moved around, and if you're stirring it up and that sort of thing, but it would actually appear just the same as before they heated it up, as if it had literally disappeared somewhere, maybe into another dimension or whatever. And so when they were trying to stir it in the pan, there's just nothing there to stir and mess around with it. So yeah, they came back and said this material really had like some properties that defied space and time.
Oh.
What?
Tressa's head might explode at this point in time.
So imagine a human ingesting that, right?
Right. That's my next question. What does I don't even know what question to ask. Does it have, like, as far as you know, any sort of like properties that would make people a little I don't know, high?
Or
well, and that's a question, were they using it as like some sort of hallucinogenic? Did it really I don't know, turn them invisible or transport them to another dimension? That's the big question. We don't have any witnesses from back then to ask about today. And you'll find on the market, like you can go to you can just Google monatomic white gold and find all kinds of different places selling this stuff. And in an interview David Hudson gave some years ago, and he's kind of fallen out of, we don't know if he's passed away or whatever. Where did he go? But he has there is some interesting videos out there on YouTube of conferences like the ORME conference and stuff like that. But he talks about, the material that's being sold on the market. And he's like, I don't know what they're selling, because I never divulged publicly my process for how I got this material out of the ground. It's like, I talked about the results. I talked about the research that we did with the University of Iowa and all that, but I never actually gave the specific process for how I got this out of the ground. So I don't know what these people are selling online. But yeah, and again, we don't know specifically what the ancient Egyptians did, but what we have found is that because it was being called mufcuts for all this period of time. It was kind of funny because the gentleman that I do the Stargates of Ancient Egypt tour with, Mohammed Ibrahim, he would kind of throw up his hands like, why are you guys calling it mufcuts? Mufcuts means turquoise, but you're saying it's this, these white gold cakes. I don't understand what's going on. So he finally found an inscription that kind of gave him the answer, where it was the white gold cakes from Mufcut's land. So Mufkut's land, basically meaning the turquoise land. And to this, it clicked for Muhammad, because he was like, oh, that's the Sinai Peninsula area where, yes, they do mine turquoise as well as gold and silver and copper and all these other elements. So that would be a material that could possibly come from there. So it's actually hebshait, or white cakes from Mufkut's land. Yeah.
I'm still
I'm
more taken
Like,
aback.
you went deep down the rabbit hole right off the bat. Like, we didn't even gradually get there. It's like, let's get the heavy stuff now.
That's exactly what we like to do. And then we bring it back, and then we go back into the rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm. I'm a little taken aback that there might be scammers online. What? That happens?
Yeah. Go figure that.
Yeah, but listen, if a woman ever contacts you about giving her money and she says she needs it for shark research, you should believe her. She's telling
her name is Jeni Monroe.
It might be.
Yes. Looking for the megalodon teeth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, precisely. Yep. Mm-hmm. So reversing it back a little bit, can you explain? I tried, and I woefully failed to explain the idea of X points to Tressa prior to this, because I said, it's this point and then this other point, but they match, and then but there's a lot of distance in between. But it's like, have you ever folded a paper plate? Yeah. So if you could,
you did a fine job.
Yeah, I don't know. That confused me.
You're welcome.
Yeah. X points. I mean, basically, so the X points, when NASA discovered these a little over 10 years ago, they actually admitted these were portals in space. So these are located outside of our planet, and it's basically where the solar wind meets with the magnetosphere of the Earth. So basically our Earth's magnetic shield. And these portals open at varying times, at various sizes. There's no predictive model for it. So they've had satellites up there for 9 or 10 years now to study these things. And again, no predictive model for it. They just, when they open, they're like, oh, it opened. Let's check it out. And then, they might be big, they might be small, they might be open for a few seconds, a couple of minutes, whatever, and then they close back up. And these type of portals basically allow the solar wind, the protons and electrons from the sun, to enter into our atmosphere quicker. So, this allows for like nice big auroras and things like this. But yeah, NASA has actually admitted that these are technically portals. So, which is kind of interesting, because that means if this is an interaction between the solar wind and the Earth's magnetosphere, well, that interaction occurs not just, where they first meet, but they interact all the way down to the surface of the Earth. So yeah, we do have these portals opening and closing at random and various times all over, here on the ground, up in the air. And, could be why people going, missing out in the wilderness, planes disappearing, these sorts of things.
I love this because, and I asked about it because I love it when you can take like widely recognized scientific like fact and sort of put it down, because you have this basis for the rest of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But Tressa, I'm sorry, I think I interrupted you.
Yeah, you did, and I forgot what I was going to say. Thanks.
Yes, that's why I do it. That's why I do it.
I am enjoying.
With portals to the stars, it's not just my own conjecture about what I think a portal is. I did throw a lot of science in there to back up my ideas and theories, and what we're finding all over the world. And NASA has admitted we do have these portals. You have scientists in the lab that have actually created wormholes, and so it's the real deal.
You should have seen Jeni excitedly telling me about the science in your book earlier. She was practically wetting her pants. So excited.
I get very excited about this, especially then when you bring in geology. because there's
Which
something. What?
we will talk about right after this.
For those of you naysayers, I want you to know how much I appreciate how many of you grabbed a hold of my small package after last week's show. It is out and available. You can get both of my books, The Other Side, A Guide to the Paranormal and Ghost Hunting, and my brand new book, Theater of the Mind, Tales from the Darkness. Both books are out. One, of course, kind of a how-to ghost hunt book, and the other story book of strange supernatural occurrences all around the world. You can get your hand on my small package by just ordering it right off of my website. You can go right to paranormal60.com, scroll down on the front page there, or go to the shop and scroll down and you'll see our book bundle. And I was so humbled by the fact of how many men put their hands on my small package at the end of last week's show and bought it. It was great. It made me feel loved and wanted. I'm not going to lie.
Nice, Dave.
Yeah.
That's our Dave.
Dave could talk about his small package in such a way that you would actually want to buy his book. Yeah.
It's what he's best at.
Yes, he is. Yes. Yeah, we had a good time this past weekend at Parasite.
I'm so sad we missed it.
I know. Me too.
Yeah, it's too bad. But yes, Dave was in, colorful as ever.
Did he get poisoned this time?
Yeah. Did he harken back to last year when he spent some time in the ER?
No, and that was great that he was able to make it this time because he was not able to last year, and so myself, Aaron Sagers, and Brian Cano had to take over duties on the auction there, on the VIP event, and it did okay. But this year, Dave was there, and he was able to do the auction, and they raised like $5,600.
It's crazy.
It's
crazy.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much he can. Man, he's good.
He's got that. He's got the personality for it. So it's like, great job, Dave. Thank you.
Was he calling everything his small package, and that's how it's?
He was not. He was not. I appreciated that. Especially since I don't know if he was actually auctioned. Did he auction anything off? I can't remember. But a couple of my things are auctioned off. Unfortunately, he didn't say anything about my small package. So
I think that's probably for the best.
That's definitely for the best. Yeah.
Jeni, let's get into geology.
Let's get into some geology. I get very excited about this because it's just so cool, right? It's something so incredibly tangible, I feel like, in a world where you don't have a lot of tangible things. So it's just the way my brain works anyway. But you get into some geology in the book, and specifically more so about like electromagnetic energy and how that can sort of spark and could be the reason for some of these portals. So how I was reading it was some of them can be where large amounts sort of pre-exist in the ground, and then ancient peoples or somebody sort of made these machines to almost like harness this power, right?
Well, I mean, they were using stone circles, pyramids, these sorts of things to harness that energy. Yeah, that chapter is called Energized Earth, and that was actually supposed to be my second book in the Connecting the Universe series. So the Portals to the Stars ended up being that second book. Travels Through Time was the first. And coming back from Egypt last year, I was like, no, I need to do the Stargates book. So I did that. So the next book is going to be Energized Earth, but it is a chapter within Portals. So it's kind of like a preview of what's to come, but it gets into a lot of, some material that you need to understand, how the portals work, how the Stargates work, and that how the ancients were able to harness that energy and look for it. So, what we're really talking about is, the energy from the core of the Earth. We have to go all the way back to the Earth's core, which is a spinning molten ball of iron. And that creates an electromagnetic field, which extends outward from the planet. And it's a wonderful thing because it protects us from the sun. Otherwise, we'd be fried and that would be it. We wouldn't exist. So as it is passing through the Earth's mantle and crust. It's interacting with different metals and minerals, and depending on the type of metal or mineral and depending on the quantity of it, it will create different localized electromagnetic fields. And these have become these areas that we'll call triangle areas, like Bermuda Triangle, Alaska Triangle, some of these others. And then there are some smaller localized electromagnetic fields that the ancients found and discovered and built things like the pyramids and the stone circles and things like this on top of, to go ahead and harness that energy. And we have been able to detect the energy at these locations, like at the Great Pyramid. About 7 or 8 years ago, there was a scientific team that was in there and did show that yes, the pyramid is actually harnessing energy from the ground and storing it within the chambers of the Great Pyramid, which I know Christopher Dunn was very happy for, because he has this whole Giza power plant theory. So he was like, yes, that partially proves my theory. So that was great. But even at a lot of these stone circles, we've been able to show the electromagnetism at these locations. And even like renowned scientists going out there, late 70s, early 80s, you had a scientific team that called themselves the Dragon Project. You're talking like geologists and other type of scientists going out there, and they've got the magnetometers and all the equipment to go out there and finding at the stone circles these electromagnetic fields. And then they even of course went out there with the dowsing rods. They had a dowser on the team, and the one scientist was like, I don't understand how it works, but I'm seeing that actually work somehow. And it's like, well, yeah, this is the way that the ancients found the electromagnetism. This is how they found the energy. It's a what we'd call an old school method, but yeah, that's what the ancients use. That's what they had at their disposal, and it does work.
That is wild. First of all, if I ever have a team of any kind, I want to name it something like the Dragon Team.
Well, they named it that because of Chinese geomancy. The ancient Chinese used the dragon, in most ancient cultures use some sort of serpent to represent earth energy. And so with the Chinese, it was the dragon. Their big serpent, and so that's why they named it the Dragon Project.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much, because I just immediately think of the Mayan and the Aztec, like Quetzalcoatl.
Exactly. Yeah. Quetzalcoatl, Chichen Itza, and on the what is it, the equinox, where you can actually see it moving up the temple. And the Egyptians, same thing. The snake was representative of energy. So yeah, and it's interesting how you have all these cultures all over the world using the same symbol to represent the same thing, energy.
That's wild. You have a section about it that refers to like spirals and circles. Speaking of symbols, and can you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, the spiral, again, cross-culturally, the spiral is representative of portals. You find this in ancient Egypt, you find it in Sardinia, you find it in Ireland, you find it in the American Southwest, and you had like a Chaco Canyon there. The ancient indigenous people saying that the spirals there were the portals that the star people used to come here to Earth to impart knowledge on the peoples. Now, the spiral itself is a two-dimensional shape. The three-dimensional representation is basically the vortex, that's that swirling energy that's coming up out of the ground. That is the 3D representation. That's a 3D object right there. If you basically, there's a couple different ways you could look at it. It's like if you were to smash the vortex down, you'd end up with spiral, or you could just like take a cross section of it, like take a slice out of the middle, and you'd have the spiral. So yeah, the spiral is representative of the vortices, and they were the portals.
Oh, that is so cool.
Great. Here's a really, really good representation. I usually use ancient Egypt, but Petroglyph National Monument outside Albuquerque, specifically the Boca Negra Mesa. Not the mesa itself, the main part of it. But as you're kind of going around the canyon wall, there's a little area that it's a short little hike. You kind of climb up the path a little bit, and you don't even go up that high. And at the bottom of this little thing you walk up, there's the star people, like you're right there on the rock, and literally one of them is a star with a face in it, star people. And you go up a little bit higher, and then there's a snake, our representation of energy. And you go up a little bit more, and then there's the spiral, and it's spelled out right there. Star people using energy to enter the portal. That's it, right there.
It doesn't get more simple than that.
Pretty cut and dry. Yeah.
Oh, I like that so much. I like that so much. Oh, I don't even know where to go from here. Okay, so the spirals and indicating like the stargates and whatnot. Like, is there anybody who you've run across who've been like I've been through one?
Yeah. So I believe people have had time loss experiences, or what we might call an extraterrestrial abduction, or even back in time when people were talking about being abducted by the fairies and that sort of thing. I do believe that when they are taken, essentially through a portal into another dimension, because and this kind of goes back to travels through time, and I link a number of things within portals to the stars back to travels through time, because we are living within the fourth dimension, which we call time, but all those other dimensions above us, 5, 6, 7, 8, view time as an object. Time doesn't really exist. We're kind of stuck in this river of time because that's the rule set that's been kind of placed upon us within the universe. But when you're in, 5th, 6th, 7th dimension beyond, you go to those, and time is just going to work very, very differently, because they are not constrained by those properties. So I believe that, when people are, abducted, they talk about having these different time loss incidents, and, they think they're gone for 5 minutes and it's been like a day, I think that's because they've been taken through a portal and are in this other dimension where time just does not work the same.
Oh, that is super interesting. First question that I have, and I thought about this with the symbol of the circle, but fairy rings.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's
Well, I'll say this about fairy rings, because people look at the whole mushroom ring and they're like, oh, there's a fairy ring. Well, that's the way mycelium grows. And so, it's so I don't look at the mushrooms as fairy rings.
I mean, like
because
the
that's a yeah. So you have like ring forts and things like that. And so I think a lot of these stone circles and things like this, and with fairies and like even Sasquatch and these other beings, I believe that they are using portals to enter and exit our own, our dimension. And if it's like a consistent spot, or you have some sort of consistency there with a being or what have you, then I believe, okay, they have mastered it, which means they have essentially turned that portal into a Stargate. So it might be a ring somewhere. Again, the whole mushroom thing is the mycelium. The mushroom the mushroom is the fruit of the mycelium that's underground. I'll get that out my front yard sometimes. I don't have a portal out my front yard. Sorry. Otherwise I'd be gone. I've been gone a long time ago.
Yeah.
but I do believe, one thing that I do believe, our portals are a lot of these, balls of light and orbs that we see. You will see them a lot of times with Sasquatch, or around ETs, with UFOs. We'll see those. And when we look at like the Einstein-Rosen bridge and a wormhole and that sort of thing, we're not going to see like this tunnel just hanging out there in our sky, or that would kind of, in a way, it would kind of look like a snake, but we're not going to see it as a tunnel in the sky with this big circle opening. A circle two-dimensional object. In three-dimensional space, it's a sphere. So I think like the film Interstellar got it right, and they had a physicist working on that film. He was consulting for them, Kip Thorne, and so these sorts of ideas came from there. So yeah, the entry point and exit point of a wormhole would actually be a sphere. So yeah, that sent me down the rabbit hole of like, wait a minute, if the entry and exit of a wormhole in that film they're taking a spacecraft through to get to some other galaxy is a sphere. Well, we always see like these balls of lights and things like that around, whether it's the UFO or the Sasquatch or the ET or whatever. It's like, is that their portal? Is that their Stargate that they use to get here? And that's what they take to go back.
I mean, even ghost sightings, when there's like full apparitions, there will be orbs. And this is blowing my mind a little bit, because now I'm just thinking about every time I've heard about an orb that was an actual orb and not just some film refraction thing. But listen, this is too much for my brain to handle right now. And going off the orbs, and since we already talked about the Chinese dragons and whatnot, I'm going to try and pretend like it's all relevant.
Okay.
In your book, you mentioned that Chinese researchers did a study or something and found plasma orbs above the Egyptian pyramids. Do you know anything more about that?
Yeah, I haven't seen too much follow-up on that, other than it was a specific type of radar technology that they were testing at great distances. And yeah, they were detecting the plasma balls above the Great Pyramid of Giza. So it kind of helps to solidify, the earlier research, because that one came out just a couple of years ago, helped to solidify the previous research from about 7-8 years ago of the Great Pyramid harnessing that energy. It's like, okay, it's harnessing energy, it's storing the energy within the Great Pyramid, and now you have these plasma balls that are forming over it. So yeah, it just becomes this this proof of this great electromagnetic conductor right there in the Giza Plateau.
Forgive my ignorance, because I know that both of you are probably just going to stare at me right now. Like, look at this dummy. But does that relate in any way to ball lightning?
Well, sure. What's interesting about ball lightning is that for a long, long time, scientists argued about whether it really existed.
Yeah.
All they had was like eyewitness testimony of it. And finally, some years ago, so there are some scientists that actually observed it. And again, it was China here just recently where they've actually finally caught it on, can't remember if it's infrared or something like that. They were doing some other scientific study, and they just happened to capture this ball lightning on camera, and they're like, "Oh, wow, yeah, it actually does exist." So, yeah, I mean, it's is that the random generation of a portal? There's also the concept of earthquake lights, where earthquake's about to happen, and all of a sudden you see this electromagnetic discharge that turns into what we would call a plasmoid to plasma discharge. That's the earthquake light, and it doesn't always happen. So it's something some scientists, and that one's even debated too, where scientists have argued about whether or not that exists. But some scientists are looking into it to see if that's maybe a predictor, perhaps, for earthquakes. And even if you could predict an earthquake, I don't know what you might be able to do about it.
Hold on, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, everybody grab hold of something.
Yeah.
So it is a natural phenomenon that I do believe is related.
Listen, Jeni and I are going to get our minds blown just a little bit more right after this break.
A vampire in Rhode Island?
A UFO crash in Connecticut?
A flying moose in Maine?
A haunted bridge that calls your name?
New England is weird.
Really weird.
Wicked Strange by Jeff Belanger and Frank Grace is your ticket to the bizarre. ghosts, monsters, urban legends, and roadside oddities you won't believe until you see them.
So pre-order now on Amazon. It drops September 2nd.
Assuming the Black Dog of West Peak doesn't get you first.
Let's get strange.
Wicked Strange. Pre-order your copy now on Amazon.
Very cool. Yeah, Jeff also has his Shadow Zine.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So we're still working on it, the particulars, but Jeff has asked me to write an issue of that. So yeah, I'm looking
Fantastic.
forward to that. Yeah.
All-star
That is
cast and all
awesome.
those writers.
Yeah,
Love it.
seriously,
Really good
it's so
series.
good.
Yeah.
Let me tell you both a little story
Oh, no.
of what happens in my brain.
Oh.
So I like to imagine Atlantis as this place under the sea. And someday when I am scuba diving, someone from that world will come to me and say, hey, do you want to come down and live with us? And you can hang out with all the sharks in the world and all
Yeah.
of the undersea creatures.
Uh-huh.
And guess what? You'll have like 5 octopus around you all the time and it'll be great.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think other people see it like that.
I'm trying to imagine, is that what, would that almost be like King Triton from Little Mermaid, or would that be the Snorks?
Yeah, pretty much.
Of
Listen, if
Oh, you guys
you
remember the
could
Smurfs, right?
imagine,
of course. They were like Smurfs underwater.
yeah,
Right,
if you
Smurfs
could
underwater,
imagine,
like big noses. Yeah.
right, the intellect level and the respect level of the snork, but then in one's brain, they're imagining themselves
Yeah.
with a Triton. That would be me, but I don't think
That
anybody else
checks
sees
out.
it like this.
No.
So please talk to me about Atlantis and
Mhm.
how this ties in with Stargates.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the long and the short of it is, I believe that, Atlantis had Stargate technology, that, the temple there in the center of the island was a working Stargate. And so it's, and it's hard to prove that, even with the works of Plato, which is where we get, about 99.98% of what we know about Atlantis. But I do believe that they had that technology because the ancient Egyptian culture is based off the Atlanteans. So you kind of have to kind of follow the path. And what drives me nuts about modern academia is they try to say that Plato was just contextualizing his own experience there in his era. But the thing is that Plato, maybe he changed the name of the place to the word Atlantis, because Atlantis is a Greek word. It's not what the ancient Egyptians called it. And, the story came from the ancient Egyptians. So, Plato got the story from, or it was passed down really from Solon, which was another Greek philosopher and, kind of distantly related to Plato. And Solon visited Egypt in 600 BC. Well, he visited like the temples of Sais and Heliopolis, talking to the priests there, and that's where he got the story from. And the priests there told him about this story of, they didn't call it Atlantis, it was the homeland of the primeval ones, and their great cataclysm happened 9,000 years before Solon got there, which puts it at 9600 BC, which is the end of the Younger Dryas era, which is that point in time which many people believe was the time of the great cataclysm, the great flood, all of that. So so it actually fits. And so when it comes to Egypt, Egypt was a part of that culture. It extended into Asia, other parts of Europe, other parts of Africa. It's debated as to whether it went over into North America, and I even speculate that it went as far south as Antarctica. It's which is hard to prove, but I do throw enough in there to make you think about it, right? So when we look at something like the larger pyramids in Egypt, there's no hieroglyphs there. There are no bodies that were ever found in there, and nothing like that. You look at the smaller pyramids in Egypt, which they're crumbling, they're falling apart. There are hieroglyphs inside. Yeah, there were some. We know that some kings are buried in there, but they're far different than the larger ones we see. And yet we're to believe that the same culture that built these smaller ones that are crumbling are the same ones that built the larger ones in a far distant time that are now standing the test of time. And it's like, this doesn't make any sense, because if the same culture built these, then there should be hieroglyphs in the bigger pyramids and these sorts of things. And there's just not. It's more of like the dynastic Egyptians, as they were building their culture, they looked at the bigger ones that already existed, and were like, whoa, those are pretty cool. I have no idea how to build one that big, but let's try to build one, and I'd love to be buried in something like that. They idolized the thing, right?
Of course.
Of course.
How could you not?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
I have one going in my backyard right now.
She does, like
you
5.
really?
Yeah, it's made out of mud. I don't think it's
Oh,
gonna
you're
last.
building a mud
Yeah.
pyramid. Okay.
Yeah, it's more of a mound. It's not good.
I'm so sorry. Inappropriate time for a joke. But
Oh, it's
please
all
do continue.
where was I going with that? Yeah, so I think when we look at the like the Great Pyramid of Giza and some of these other larger ones, like the Bent Pyramid and the Red Pyramid and other ones, they were built by an older culture of the Atlanteans that had this Stargate technology, and that technology has kind of been lost to time. I think the dynastic Egyptians figured part of it out, and they were able to incorporate. Where they incorporated it was within their temples, but I don't think they had as fully functioning as the culture that would have predated them. It was part of the Atlantean culture.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense to me than other kind of ways that I've thought about that. Yeah, that it was like a mimic thing, or like, hey, idealization, that sort of thing. You talk
Yeah,
about.
I mean, we do the same thing today.
Oh, yeah.
We see something that's cool, and we try to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You talk about some of inside those bigger pyramids, that they're a lot different. And one of the things that you mentioned was like something looking like melted limes, like the limestone had been melted.
Yeah, and the Great Pyramid of Giza. So it kind of helps to support the whole idea that whether it was a power plant or it was certainly some sort of machine. And if you go within the Queen's Chamber, which is off limits to the public, but our tour, we get 2 hours, just ourselves, just our group within the Great Pyramid of Giza, and the whole thing's opened up to us. The public, when you get your little ticket during the day, you can go up the Grand Gallery into the King's Chamber, back down. That's it. But we get into the Queen's Chamber, and it's kind of sad because off to the side, they kind of like use it as a storeroom. There have been some times in there where it's like we have to kind of cram in there because they'll have equipment and other things stored in there.
That is kind of a bummer.
Yeah. So but when you get in there, off to the left-hand side is this corbelled niche, which is about 15 feet tall. And the traditional archaeologists have tried to say, well, this is where like some sort of statue or idol was housed. Of course, no statue or idol was ever found there. There's no markings on the floor that a statue or idol was ever there. It's just like, yeah, well, yeah, they could have put one there, so that's what it's going to be. Okay. But there's a passage, square passage that leads about 90 feet into the pyramid from this corbelled niche, which doesn't make any sense if you're just putting a statue there. Why do you have this passage that's going back into there? And then the back wall of that niche above the passage, it's black it's scorched. The stone is melted. Something extremely hot happened there. So it certainly was not a statue or some sort of idol or whatever. Something happened within this chamber. The Queen's Chamber is also has a layer of salt on it. Christopher Dunn's theories, he with his Giza power plant theory believes that this was some sort of chemical reaction chamber, and yeah, it kind of adheres to that with the walls being covered in salt. You got this niche that's there that's where stuff has certainly been blackened and melted and just. Yeah, something was going on here. Even the King's Chamber above that, it's the chamber's made of granite, as one rose granite, but there's nothing rosy about it at all. It's all black. It's been blackened. And when you look at the ceiling at the top, not only is it black, but you also have these weird, strange rectangular marks on each single block. And where they kind of end as they're going from the wall toward the middle kind of coincides with the box that's on the ground. People call it a sarcophagus. Again, no body was ever found. I call it a coffer. It kind of coincides, lining up with these markings that are on the ceiling. So it's like, yeah, something was going on here. It was not just like storing a body. It makes no sense. And the idea that it was used to store the body of Khafra, or actually no, this would have been not Khafra, that was the second pyramid, Khufu. So he was king for 25 years. So the idea is, when he became king, he said, I want this massive pyramid built to put my body in. And somehow over that 25 years, this was built.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, and there's not enough time to build it. I can't even remember the numbers. I just did an event with Ben Van Kerkwijk, and he had the numbers right off the top of his head. He's got a brilliant mind like that. And they would have had been pumping out, because there's millions of blocks in this thing. They would have had to been pumping this out. Even if you're going 24/7, the number of blocks they would have to pump out like per minute.
Yeah.
From like pouring thing, cutting it out and
Yeah.
smoothing it and getting it over there and transport is like insane. You would have to be like doing a certain number of blocks per minute, and it just doesn't work out. Yeah.
We've one really important thing, because we're nearing the end of the hour, but I want to know how these places feel, because you have been all over the place at so many of these sites and so many of these sacred sites and places where there's stargates, and like, what does it feel like to be there and to sort of be in the presence of all of this?
Yeah, it's amazing. The first time I ever went there, it was because people would ask me when I came back, how did the energy feel? And it's like, I don't know if it was the energy at that point in time, or if I was just so awestruck, from seeing everything. So when you go for the first time, it's hard to know what you're feeling, because you walk into the Great Pyramid or you walk into the temple. Oh my God. It's amazing.
It's wild when you're there.
Yeah, it really, really is. So going back multiple times now, I've been able to kind of settle out of the whole awestruck thing, even though it is still, very awe-inspiring.
Of course.
And yeah, the energy is amazing. You go into the Great Pyramid, it's palpable, it's there. Absolutely. And each time I go back out, we're always discovering new things. It's and just to be amongst the ancients like that, and knowing that this is thousands and thousands of years old, it has literally stood the test of time. Where you look at our modern buildings, they don't.
Not at all. Everyone's house is crumbling regardless of how new it is.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
I can't even it's unfathomable living right now and knowing that something can exist that long that was built is so wild. It's Yeah. This has been a great commercial for your tour to Egypt.
Yeah. Please come. Please come. That tour, I mean, we do so many things. So like I said, the Great Pyramid of Giza, 2 hours, just our group. The whole thing's opened up to us. We have a 4-day Nile cruise. This year we're exploring the Egyptian labyrinth at Hawara. It's really, really a fascinating tour.
When is when is this?
Yeah, so it's November 11th to the 23rd. So there's still time to sign up and join us, and we will be back before Thanksgiving. I've been asked that. It's in November. We'll be back for Thanksgiving. Yes,
Egypt or Turkey?
Yeah, right. Like,
yeah.
I'm gonna go with Egypt, but
yeah, I'll pass on the dry bird. That's very exciting. Jeni and I are going to sign up tomorrow.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you both along.
I'm going to definitely look into it because I've never been to Egypt, and that would be phenomenal. Because
it is such a life-changing experience. It really
I can
is.
imagine.
When you go
How
to
can it
some
not
of these,
be?
Yeah, when you go to some of these places, especially those like ancient like sites, right? Like, I mean, I've been to a ton of Mayan, temples, but it's staggering and it feels so different. It just everything there just feels different. And I just I love that so much. I didn't even mention the national parks and how there's probably little portals and some of those guys.
Absolutely.
But we'll have to talk about that next time.
Absolutely. I love coming on your show.
Yay! All right.
Okay.
Please tell us everything about where to find you, all of the things, so that everybody can find you.
You can find me MikeRicksecker.com. That's my main website. Also ConnectedUniversePortal.com. That's my membership site. I'm also back on Patreon as well, so you can find me there, and then all over social media, so like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all that fun stuff.
Fantastic. Everybody go buy this most recent book and the ones before. I read the time travel one. Fantastic. Jeni was telling me all about the portal one that just came out.
It's
fantastic.
really good, you guys. Yeah, and it's broken down. You can understand it. It's amazing.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us again. It was such a pleasure.
Always. Yeah. Like I said, I love coming on your show.
Oh, we love having you.
Stick around for a second after we go off, and we can say thank you again. What?
Sounds good.
Everybody else. Hey, I blocked my mic. Join us on our socials. Write us an email. Do the stuff because we love to talk to people and things. So until next time, thanks for joining us on the Monsters Lounge.